All right, so I want to give Aaron a bit of an introduction while we're all getting situated. We've been doing this for about 4 or 5 weeks. If you didn't already know, one of the things that we really value at Alluvium is kind of spiritual enrichment and fulfillment. And that journey started in a way that kind of begins with me, but I think it's resonant with Aaron's discussion, what he's going to say for a couple of reasons. One reason is because, you know, when I was told that I was going to die from leukemia, and then I convalesced and I got better, you know, I kind of thought about what should I do with the time that I have? Because when they told me you're not going to die from leukemia, that obviously was not a reprieve for the rest of my life. It was only a temporary reprieve, as all reprieves are temporary at best. So being somebody who was already then at a fairly advanced age, I'm much older. So being somebody at an already advanced age, that reprieve was not permanent to me. And it really made me think, what should I do with my time? What should I do with the rest of my life? There are a lot of scientists, including Eugene Levy, who I spoke with recently, who's a really well-reputed astronomer, and after whom the Levy-Schumacher event is named, who believe that Earth is maybe the only place in the universe where humans can exist. And we may in fact be the only intelligent life that exists in the universe, according to many scientists. And these are all probabilistics, but I think they bring up an interesting point that if we are surrounded by a vast cosmos that's really dark, cold, and unfavorable to our existence, then we're all in a sort of prison. And the only difference between those of us who are in the smaller prisons is really the geography of the prison itself. So that's one reason why Aaron's story, which you're about to hear, is going to resonate with me. Another reason that it really resonates with me is something that a lot of people don't know about is when I was 16 years old, I had been living on my own for about 1 or 2 years at this point, and I was arrested for breaking and entering. And the cops snatched me up while I was leaving work, and they held me for about 8 or 9 hours. And in those 8, and the first thing they did is they jumped the curb in front of me while I was walking home, and they grabbed me by the back of my head, and they slammed my head on the asphalt, and they handcuffed me. And then they picked me up, and then they slammed my head repeatedly on the roof of the car, the police car. And you know, all the while I didn't know what was going on. I just went like that. And for several weeks after that, I looked like I had been beaten up. And while I was in jail, this conversation kind of recursively persisted over and over and over again between myself and the cops, where the cops would come in and say, listen, just confess that you did this crime, and then we're going to let you go. And there's just going to be a slap on the wrist and you won't get in any trouble at all. Okay. But just confess that you broke into somebody's car. And then and I guess they said that I sold some stuff. They said, just confess to this and you're going to be fine. You're going to get maybe a slap on the wrist. But the more you don't confess, the worse the consequences are going to be. And regardless, you're not getting out of jail tonight. They said, you're going to spend the night in jail. And then after that, you're going to go to court. And then we're going to throw you in jail for a longer time for breaking the law. And the only way for you to get out of it with a temporary sentence, with being able to go home tonight, is if you just admit that you did this crime. And I was maybe about 10 or 15 minutes away from admitting it. And at that point, the cops just said, all right, well, you're free to go. And there was never any explanation. I never knew which car they were referring to. I never knew what they thought I had. And I was so close to being in jail. And this was Texas. And this was Texas a long time ago. It was in the 90s. So they could have thrown me in jail for months for breaking and entering, for stealing, for resisting arrest. I could have been in jail for a really long time. Now I'm a medical doctor now, but I'm confident that my life would have had a very different trajectory if they'd kept me in jail. And the only difference between me being a doctor today and me being in jail and getting a criminal record and my life going down a very, very different path was that 10 or 15 minutes. So, all right, so that's why Aaron's story really resonates with me, because I think we should not, Gandhi said, the justice of a society is truly determined by how well we treat our prisoners. And so I think there's a tendency to very much otherize, right? Turn people into the Jungian other or the Jungian shadow when they've been to prison. Now, Aaron, you were in prison for LSD, for selling LSD, so it was a non-violent offense. And you were in prison for how many years?
8.5.
8.5 years for what was essentially a non-violent crime, right? You were selling LSD to adults who wanted to buy it, who were consenting, you were forcing it. I just want people to sort of know that as they hear your story. So, all right, I'm gonna stop talking now and let Aaron now introduce himself. And I think what he gained in those 8 years is a really valuable set of insights, experiences, and philosophies that I've found to be very moving, cogent, and compelling. So this is Aaron, everyone. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and have this opportunity to communicate with a larger group of people. It's something I haven't done in a very long time. Partially because when I got in trouble, I was at the most successful peak of my life so far and was very influential at the time. And I think that ever since then, I've been holding myself back a little bit. I didn't plan to say this part, but I've been holding myself back a little bit because there's a certain hesitation in which there's a deep, deep memory of when you were doing the best you've ever been doing and you were most successful and you sold 3 million hits of LSD and had traveled the country throwing free parties, raves, and had a lot of influence. And then at that moment when I felt like I was completely protected by the most positive bubble of, the force, indeed, to the contrary, there's somebody knocking at the door taking me to jail. So I feel like ever since then, there's been a hesitation to come out into the public and like address anybody at random in a situation like this versus just one-on-one. I have conversations, small group of friends that I already know I have conversations about stuff. But this is the first time to show up at an event and say, sure, I'll talk to just some new friends, hopefully. And so here we go. And what really has resonated with me so deeply is that very few people actually have been to prison, more people than most people think. Probably about 1 out of 10 people have been involved in the justice system to some degree in their lives. But there's about 2.3 million people in federal prison at any given moment. And that's not counting state prisons. There's a lot of people that have. But when I saw this COVID thing happen, and suddenly people were stay in your home, don't go anywhere, don't go around people, don't come to work, there was a major feeling of, wow, I'm prepared for this. This will be just fine for me. I've done this all before, way, way worse than anything anybody's calling a lockdown, and this may be the opportunity where the masses of people in the world finally can relate and understand what it's like to be held captive to some degree, to lose your freedoms that you think you have, right? And so I just want to mention real quickly, there's a hierarchy of this. You could be maximum security, solitary confinement, and you can go down a level and you can just be maximum security behind 20-foot concrete walls. Then you go to the level where you're behind, like 17-foot tall fences with concertina wire, triple fences. Then you go down to the level where there's a fence and there's no wire. And then you go to the minimum security and there's just a line painted on the ground. And then you go to a halfway house where you can come and go, but only at specific times and only go to work. And then you can go to the next level, which is home confinement. And now you're at your house, same as the halfway house. And then you get to be free, which still, as everybody knows, is not absolutely free. There's plenty of laws. So it's kind of like open area, co-ed work camp, which is called freedom. And so it seems that most of us here probably have experienced at least the feeling of home confinement at some point during this process. Yes, home confinement at the least, right? And some people, the reaction to the situation is probably a little more exaggerated than what's actually happening. So some people really would say that they feel locked down and they feel like they've been put into prison, like that the whole world has become a prison or something. Well, what a lot of people don't know unless they do go to prison is that there's this thing that's well known in the subculture of, people who have been. And it's the idea of doing time. And when I say doing time, I imagine you guys think of doing time goes along with prison. People go to prison, they do time, right? Well, the reality is that we're all doing time, and that it doesn't matter if you're on this side of a wall or on that side of a wall, you're doing time. So, myself, I never heard of the idea of doing time, really. Got to jail, found out we're doing time. First thing somebody says to me, something about, don't do the time, don't let the time do you. Wow, what's that mean? And then they say, you can do bad time or you can do good time. It's like, really? I have that freedom here in prison that I can do good time or I can do bad time? And then, one of the first people that said hi to me said, hey, come over to my house, have some tea. I'm like, come to your house, have some tea? Okay, walk over, opens the door, come on in, here, have some tea, here, have a seat on my couch. I'm thinking, you mean your bunk, right? Like your bunk? And they're like, go and get thing, and just calm and casual, make some tea, serve me some tea, I have some tea, we sit down, have some tea together. And I felt so much more at ease suddenly. And then, a little bit of talking to people, time goes on, I find out there's this thing called people being institutionalized. And somebody says, that guy you were talking to is institutionalized. He's lost it. So as time goes by, I thought about that, thought about how he was acting, and I realized that what people were judging as institutionalized was actually he had become well adjusted to a situation that he was in and had learned to do good time. And many of the people that would, make fun of this person, well, they're constantly stressed, angry, they're frustrated, they're on the phone trying to control things that they have no power to control and slamming the phone. So how do you do good time and how do you do bad time? And it comes down to this real simple thing, is that doing bad time is thinking about where you are not at, what you do not have, who you are not with, and what you cannot do. So if you're thinking about where you are not at, what you do not have, who you are not with, and what you cannot do, you're doing bad time. And that's a prison sentence. And that's a prison sentence that sticks with you. It doesn't matter if you think you're free. If you are doing bad time, you're not free. And so the people who you might think are in prison, because they are actually wearing prison uniforms, and they're behind a fence, a lot of them are doing good time. And doing good time is appreciating where you are, appreciating what you have, fully appreciating who you are with, and appreciating and taking advantage of to the fullest what you can do. And so then you're doing good time. So there's many people who are supposedly in prison that are doing better time than some of you might be doing. And there's, many people that in reverse, that are thinking that are out here that are doing bad time, as well. So,
Aaron, do you mind if I open it up to the group? Because I do
Sure.
want this to be interactive. So
Yes.
from time to time, I'm going to give you all prompts to sort of fill in some gaps. And can you think of some examples of when you've done hard time or done good time in your lives? And anyone can raise their hand and volunteer to say, this is a time I was doing good time, just as a prompt.
Okay, so I have been separated from my children and falsely accused of a violent act that, had it been true, I should be in prison. But it was a flat out lie. But I still lost access to my children because, in my opinion, my ex-husband happens to be delusional. And he should be institutionalized in a nice way. because he was traumatized as a child, was raised by a sicko. I mean, I did go to prison for listening to his daughter. And so he has murder and unsolved murder mystery and this stuff. So I married into this family that's dysfunctional. And then this man told the judge he's afraid of me. How do you fix that? How do you fix someone if they, I don't know if he's just a liar or if he truly is afraid of me. And how do you fix fear? Because I keep telling people I'm not going to do anything to him. One, I don't want to go to prison. Two, it wouldn't solve anything. I see on the, I mean, I'm not a killer. I was raised not to murder, so he doesn't have to worry about anything like that. The most I would probably do is maybe call him some bad names. That's all.
So how, though, was your experience of time? Because you were doing time through that. How was your experience? Was it, do you feel like you were doing good time or doing bad time through that? And did it change at all?
It taught me a lot. And when I lost custody of my children, I was trapped in a hospital with tubes down my nose and up my jaw, and I could not get to the courthouse to represent myself. So I was in a different type of home. I'm trying to save my life from a complete bowel obstruction that happened 10 days after the hysterectomy. So it was just a random fluke thing. And social media with when I got out of that ordeal, I went back to my lawyer. I'm good. So unfortunately for me, our country in 2016 elected a man who reminds me of my ex-husband, raped me and abused me and sodomized me. It was all under the approval of a church, I guess, that taught women to submit to husbands and everything. And he cleans up real well in front of everybody. He's a real cleaned up guy. He's a Christian, no less.
I want to give Aaron a chance to respond, but I wanted, Axon mentioned that he wanted to say something too.
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying about basically it's where your frame of reference is whether or not you're going to get good or bad. It reminds me a lot of the Serenity books. Wisdom is ever elusive, courage is episodic, and it is restive. But serenity to accept is a daily practice. No matter how good you, how privileged you are, there are things you cannot change. You cannot accept them. You're doing a hard time.
Yeah, it's also related to that. It's a kind of a well-known thing about like the unknown in a way. When people are trying to find a way out of a situation and they don't know, like for instance, just to go back to the thing about going to court and getting in trouble, you know, people have the opportunity to appeal and appeal and appeal. So it's like, you know, a person actually suffers more when they don't know when they're going to get out of this, you know. And so when they file their last appeal or they just give up, you know, as long as they're constantly thinking about when am I going to get out? Is it going to be a year or is it going to be 10 years? You know, and then when they file their last appeal to the Supreme Court, it's your last shot, and you get rejected. It's like, wow, what a relief. I finally know when I'm going to get out of here. And then, so that's one part of it that's interesting, is that people are trying so hard to get out of the situation. And sometimes you can't get out of the situation. Like, you know, you can't just make COVID go away. So in this situation, there's a certain amount of wisdom and courage in accepting that you can't change the situation. You can't force it all to go away. So then it becomes incumbent upon you to take responsibility for your own life, make your own mental, emotional, psychological choices in response to this, the certainty of the uncertainty. And then it goes back to, can you embrace where you are and what you have, who you're with, and what you can do? Suddenly, your life feels a lot more at ease and you feel more free.
I was going to say that, sitting here thinking about mindfulness practice,
Mm.
that in any circumstance, no matter what it is, regardless of what's going on in life, that you tell yourself in that moment, what first of all, it's be in that moment. That's all you have, and that's a cliche. People say, this moment now is all you have. It's true.
Mm.
What comes after this, we don't know. What before, it's gone, it's done. And that's been the most helpful piece of philosophical advice that I have picked up over the years. And I used to be a therapist, and I worked a lot with people who, and I do struggle with this too. I came from a family of people that had absolutely no ability to be in the moment. It's always what's going to happen tomorrow, what happened yesterday. But it's being able to say to yourself, and you just, it really is a form of meditation. Come back to now. Be here now. And one thing I learned, and this is just a kind of weird, goofy example, but it pops in my head because I used to get migraine headaches. I don't much anymore, but when I would have them, when they were really bad, I would lie there and I wouldn't cry because it hurt so much. But I thought if I cry, it's going to make it worse. My head is going to hurt even more. And I remember reading, I don't remember what book it was, but it was one of many books over the years that talked about being present. And when it comes to physical pain and suffering, not even necessarily physical, but the physical pain, we have a tendency to do this thing of, oh my God, it hurts so much, I can't take this, it's so painful. And then the suggestion by this author was, tell yourself over and over, it's just a sensation, it's just a sensation, it's just a sensation. And I thought about that one time when I came home from work and I had a horrible family therapy session that just blew my head up. And I thought, I'm lying on the bed and don't cry. It hurts so much. And I just started doing that. It's just another sensation. And what I found after doing that for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes is not that the headache was gone, but that I no longer experienced it as pain. It was like I knew that it was there. I knew there was something in my head, but I was no longer saying, oh, it's so horrible, this pain is so bad. It was just, it's something that's there. And I discovered that when I go to the dentist, I had to go to a neurologist's office recently and had some injections that were supposed to be quite painful. And he said, this is going to be really uncomfortable. And I thought, not a problem. And it's sort of like, what is pain? It's what you tell yourself. And I guess when I think about what you're saying, it's very, where you are, choice or not, it's how you decide you're going to proceed. Is this a terrible thing? Is this a disaster? If you tell yourself it is, and I come from a family of people that are used to slowing down, it's taken me most of my life at 64 at that point where it's like I can say, no, I do have some control. I can tell myself, how am I going to experience this? Am I going to tense up? Am I going to freak out? And there's always that choice. I had a therapist years ago, and I'm going to stop for a second. I had a really good therapist. I remember talking to her about my depression because I suffered from depression off and on from adolescence on. It would get really bad. And I told her, there are times when I can be doing fine. And then it'll feel, it's like that sensation of, a cloud passes over the sun and you just kind of get that chill, ugh. And I told her, that's what it feels like. And then when that happens, I know the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to start getting depressed. And she said, well, the next time you have that experience, ask yourself, do I need to do this right now? And I thought, what the hell? You got a lot of nerve. And it was intriguing. And I thought to myself, a week later, I was at home and I had that sense of, because often when I had that, it was just I don't know, it was emotional, what it was, but that sense of if I would pass me over, and my reaction used to be just, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, do I need to do this? And I thought, no, I've got other stuff I've got to take care of. I can't do this right now. So there's that sense of being able to have a choice. And I think that's for me, the prison that I've experienced, when I see other people in my family, lots of my clients, is feeling like there is no choice.
Right. Very true. And it really, it reminds me, I mean, again, it's like almost having a range of freedom, you know, that people would normally associate, kind of lulls us into the illusion of having way more power than we actually have, which is like a defense mechanism, because most people are so uncomfortable with facing the reality that you can't predict what's going to happen next, and that everything isn't going to go according to your plans. And I have yet to meet anyone of anywhere, you know, or I've heard of anybody that actually can just make everything go their way always. And so in a way, the apparent curse of being locked into your house because of COVID and not being able to go to work, or the thing of ending up in a hospital with some restraints, or ending up, you know, with pain that you can't get to go away, whatever the case may be, it's amazing because there's a gift in that, because as you are stripped of all of your control and all of your, you know, assumed power and ability, then being forced to surrender and accept that you are not in control of everything always. Things will not always go the way you plan. You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. And so in doing that, I feel like coming to be comfortable with the unknown and the uncertainty is essential for real freedom to happen. And if you can have that happen without having to go through some kind of hard time, without having to be held against your will in some way, whether it's biological, physical, or legal, then so be it, and that's a great thing. Congratulations. But I think that most of us almost require being held against our will, metaphorically, in some way, whether it's biological or legal, you know, in order to finally come to terms with that you are not in control of everything, but you are, with intention and discipline, you are in control of your response. And so, you know, it's like you were saying that it's just the sensations in regard to pain. It's just a sensation. How am I going to interpret the sensation? You can go along that route. You can say, it's just a circumstance. You know, how am I going to feel about the circumstance? Or someone could be, you could say, those are just words or just sounds coming out of someone's mouth. I mean, do I need to take those sounds and interpret them into words? And if I do interpret them into words, do I have to let them define who I am? Say somebody was like trying to talk bad to you or something, you know. But that freedom is the freedom that I think transcends the circumstances and transcends life and gives you a happiness that can't be shook. And so, you know, to bring this back around to another interesting thing that I saw happening is, you know, oh, here, I'll show you, I wore a shirt today for this occasion. So I was a depressed, angry young kid once, and so I took some LSD when I was 18, and I realized very quickly that I was very angry at the system, at rich people in general, right? I was an angry punk rock kid that was self-destructive in a way. But when I had that thing where it's kind of like sped up the direction of my life to its conclusion, I saw that it was just so underneath it all was judgment, anger, and hate. And then that led to a feeling of, you know, we all deserve to die, right? But then I thought to myself, suddenly in this state, do I really deserve to die? Like, did I really do something so bad? I mean, what is this? And it came to me that I've always been doing the best I can where I am with what I have based on what I've been through. And then there was a great release of judgment for myself, because I thought, you know, I didn't choose, you know, what family or I didn't choose to be born in the family of LSD dealers, you know. I didn't choose to be a family where, you know, my dad went to prison, my mom went to prison. You know, I didn't choose to be this body or this location or grow up in this poverty. You know, I didn't choose all these things that had directed my life so much before I ever made a conscious decision. My life was already in motion. The domino's been falling since before I was born, and before my parents were born, and before their parents were born. The dominoes have been falling. So when I had that realization for myself, I forgave myself. Even deeper than forgiveness, I realized the error that I was never guilty in the first place. And then once I did that for myself, that was the big liberation moment. The second part has to happen is that I realized everybody everywhere is doing the best they can, where they are, with what they have, based on what they've been through. And so nobody in my mind or my heart is guilty. And so I freed myself from that, and I freed everybody else from that same judgment. And to this day, and from that point forward, I can say that I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because it's not dependent on what you do. You know, it's really a reflection of who I am and who I know you are. You're a human and I'm a human doing the best we can where we are with what we have based on what we've been through.
So Aaron, I want to pause because I think that is a really poignant observation. And that to me is sort of the second half of the revelations and insights that you have. Last time we were here, we talked about our own internal voices of self-criticism. My voice of guilt and my reaction of guilt is particularly strong. It's really very powerful. And I'm highly motivated by guilt. We've heard some poignant, so I think what resonates with me with what you've said is how one forgives oneself and how one reconciles the past, the circumstances, and even the fabric of our identity and says, you know what, that's okay, I'm going to forgive that. But we've heard some really poignant stories about how other people have created our pain. And one of the other things that we talked about a few weeks back was the nature of human evil. I tend to be very misanthropic because there's so much overwhelming evidence that humans are very malignant creatures, that how can you not be? So I want to take, just because I think your analysis is very poignant, maybe apply it a little bit to those of us who criticize ourselves a lot, and your framework of like saying, you know, there's no reason to criticize yourself for who you've been. And maybe apply that to something that we've never talked about before, which is how you take that analysis and use it to forgive others, including people who've done us great harm. So I'm kind of curious how you, because I think that to me is your second set of insights that I really wanted to focus on.
Good. Yeah, it in a way, I summarize this idea. If you take it and you look at it real deep and real close, you'll be real honest. And the honesty takes courage because there's a fear of admitting that you're not in control. You know, there's an underlying fear of loss of identity because people identify with being the controller, the one who's in control, and the one that's the doer of deeds. And so from there, from that, which I think is a misunderstanding of reality, from that you end up with self-judgment and judgment of others. But when you're really, really clear about it, you know, it comes down to kind of a biology and genetics. You know, you end up with some biology, you end up with some genetics, and you end up with some environment, and you end up with some family structure or no family. You know, and then you have psychology. You end up with some psychology, which is somewhat biological, sociological, economics, environment, and conditioning. And you end up with psychology, a psychological, you know, way about you. So when it comes down to it, and if it's biological and it's psychological, and it's either your genetics or it's your psychology, which is your environment and your conditioning, then it just seems like, sorry to bust everybody's ego trip, but it's way more similar to scratching off lottery tickets than it is to what we usually consider our life. And so if you were to go along with me on this, and if it makes sense at all, if I'm scratching off lottery tickets and I lose, should I feel guilty about losing a lottery? I mean, I scratched off a ticket. If you scratch off a ticket and you win, I mean, should you really boast and be so proud of yourself? So arrogant, like about, look, I'm a winner. I mean, are you really? I mean, you scratched off lottery tickets, I scratched off lottery tickets. So in a playful way, I like to reduce it down to that and say that, you know, who is going to really feel guilty and who's going to really, who has the logical justification and the right to feel so importantly guilty or so importantly arrogant, you know? And so I feel if you trace it all the way back Some people say, well, then what, you blame your parents, and then they blame their parents. Eventually you go all the way back and somebody comes up with God or something, so they blame God then, you know. So how does one forgive themselves? In the context of this, it's not forgiveness. That's the thing. Because if you're searching for forgiveness, then you're already accepting this false idea that you're so powerful and so in control that you are guilty and therefore need to be forgiven. Forgiveness is what churches like to talk about, but I like to go deeper and higher than that and say that the mistake is that you don't need to make judgments in the first place. And if you don't judge, in my opinion, illogically, if you look closely, and I just don't think there's real good justification for that. So if you don't judge and you don't find yourself or others guilty, then you don't need to forgive anybody. You just need to remove the error, which is you assuming that somehow you made this completely free will choice out of, you know, a vacuum when you didn't. So it's like no one individual is guilty and no one individual is responsible in the normal sense of those words, but collectively all of us are able to respond. And all of us participating cooperatively or coalescing into this reality at this moment, this society at this moment, you know? So we have a great role to play in our ability to respond, and our ability to have compassion, and our ability to understand for ourselves and understand for others that there isn't really anybody, that isolated individual that can be used as a scapegoat. Literally, I'm referring to like the biblical tradition of taking the sins of the people to a high priest, who then puts the sins on the innocent, you know, goat or sheep or whatever it was at that time, and sends it outside beyond the city walls into the wilderness, which is prison. It's, you know, take the person, it's all your fault, you're guilty, cast you out. Prison inside yourself, I'm guilty, cast myself out. I'm gonna cast myself out of happiness. I'm gonna cast myself out of freedom. I'm gonna feel bad about myself, you know? And so my answer is that the idea that it's anybody's fault individually in the first place is flawed. So you don't need forgiveness. You just need to reanalyze and become aware of the reality that we're all doing the best we can where we are with what we have based on what we've been through. And so much of that had nothing to do with our free will choices.
I think some people have some thoughts, so let's, one more time, your name?
Dave.
Dave. I know we met
Thank
you.
you for bringing up that concept of, and for me anyway, personally, you know, guilt, shame, you know, and thinking of addictions, which is another person you can put yourself in. Hard time or easy time, depending on your choices you make, but it kind of keeps you in the loop of continually because you feel not worthy or not good. And then the other thing that I struggle with is feeling the presence of the emotions. And if it's a negative circumstance, you tend to want to escape it. So in terms of accepting where you're at, I think, and feeling the presence, as you were mentioning, and then recognizing, you know, we do make decisions in life and there are consequences. That's reality. So, you know, it may not be the best decisions that we make, but there are consequences in life. 800,000 young people OD this last year at fentanyl, taking other drugs and not realizing and dying. And so that's a warning out there, not to shame or guilt people, but to let them know there are consequences to the decisions we make in life that could kill us or other people. And the realities are there. I'm not saying that shame or guilt is good because it does keep us in the loop. But we still have to accept the fact that the decisions we make in the past, we may be living today as a person, as a nation, as a world, where we're at. We do kind of reap what we sow. And yet we need to kind of accept the fact that, you know, my grandparents made some decisions, and that's why I'm kind of where I'm at. And that's okay. You know, I can accept that, but it's still a reality in the world in which we live. You know, things don't just happen for nothing. There are decisions we make that have repercussions along the way. So, I don't know, maybe you can think about that.
Yeah, I agree that there are decisions and there are repercussions and that the repercussions are real. And that's the one thing is a couple of things I should clarify real quick. They're important because sometimes assumptions are made based on what I've said already. So at no point am I recommending suppressing any emotions or trying to avoid emotions or anything like that, or judging emotions as bad or anything, which oftentimes some people will assume I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that it's more in the mind and awareness and the emotions. It's not about trying to get rid of emotions. It's about changing your mind and changing your awareness and reevaluating the so-called common sense that would say that you are guilty or they are guilty, and therefore, or that you are not worthy, or they aren't worthy, any of that. So it's questioning the fundamental belief at the core so that the emotions don't occur as an outcome. Never is it about trying to pretend like you don't have emotions. It's never about suppressing or repressing anything. It's about transforming your awareness of what's actually happening so that you don't even have the emotions. So there's no trying to get them away. It's just changing that. But then the other thing he said was consequences. That's another thing, is sometimes it's assumed I'm trying to make excuses for criminals so that they don't have to face any consequences. And a lower level than that is like, forget about criminals and crime, just trying to make excuses for people in general to do, not nice things, whether or not it's criminal, just not to be, to be like the way they are and have a big excuse. And it's not that it's trying to find a way to excuse people's behaviors and say that all things are equal in the sense that they're all enjoyable or something that I would support or encourage. There are consequences to your choices, but you can be aware of the fact that this choice has this potential consequence. And that awareness does not have to be fueled by an underlying feeling of any guilt or shame or anything like that. So it's amazing because you can still function in the world and have people orient themselves towards doing the right thing, the socially beneficial thing, and respecting themselves and others, respecting people's rights. All that can be done with awareness and with a choice-based analysis on consequences of choices. Yet that never implies that there has to be a guilty party that needs to be punished. That's a completely unnecessary concept from where I'm coming from. That's just like the cop-out of all cop-outs that excuses everybody to go back to work, not inspect their own life, and just be like, the bad person did it. Or, sometimes it's a cop-out for yourself. You just feel like you're the bad person and you did bad. And this is what you deserve. And, and that kind of can be a cop-out because it allows you to stay in the negative cycle you might be in instead of raising up to change.
Let's do a couple more questions. I'll give you the next question. Let's do one more question after that. And then I have 2 questions and we'll ask us the final questions and we'll have some time for small group discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with what you're saying. And I also have some concerns because of the legal system that oftentimes doesn't punish violent crimes very severely at all. As an example, in 2019, I was attacked randomly by a young, strong, she happened to be Black woman on drugs. And I never did find out what drug she was on, but she was absolutely on drugs, did not know where she was. And she was homicidal, angry. And she attacked me from behind. Second time around the feet, tying my head to the pavement. And thank God, I'm just thankful that kind of a situation causes me to just be grateful to be alive. And that there were people around that called 911 and that she didn't have a weapon. And I was trying to help her, but it did give me some PTSD, which I'm working on overcoming from situations like that. And comedy has helped. And going back to visit the place of where a trauma happened and reassuring myself that I'm safe there. That was a one-off. She only spent 4 days in jail, told the judge she doesn't remember that, and she was off to court.
Yeah, so your concern is that people don't necessarily get punished enough when they do
No.
actual crimes that
Yeah,
are
and I was
violent.
accused, I was somehow implicated by the police officer somehow, and I was like, no.
And it's an interesting irony though, because you've done for a crime that's not violent,
Yeah,
that doesn't hurt anyone, right? And that's something that you're selling LSD to consenting adults.
yeah.
And then you did 8 years.
My original sentence was 12 and a half years. And a friend of mine's mother was murdered by somebody who went to prison twice for violence. And on the third time, murdered her mom. And when that happened, that person, the prosecution wanted the death penalty. The family didn't believe in the death penalty. They wanted life in prison. But the person ended up getting 12 and a half years, which I would just like, I just got 12 and a half years for first felony ever in life and selling LSD. I just got the same sentence as this person's third felony, and they murdered somebody and they got the same sentence I did. But the thing is I'm not saying that to say that I think they deserve more. Because the thing about what you're saying, to me, my spin on that, my feedback is that you're saying that people might not get punished enough for, actual crimes like attacking you violently. And I think that, again, the idea that they need to be punished is questionable, because you have to ask, whenever you think that somebody does something that doesn't make sense to you, some crime, and you find yourself judging somebody as doing bad, whether it's criminal or just social interactions that you don't believe in or don't like, right? Well, ask yourself, like, why aren't you doing that crime? Why aren't you doing that? I mean, and usually you'll think, well, because I'm sane, like, because I care about other people, because I care about myself. And if you get into that kind of questioning, you realize that anytime you ever think somebody did some terrible thing, then it must be pretty obvious that a sane person wouldn't do that. Like, why would a perfectly sane person, if you're going to define sane as respecting yourself, respecting others, not hurting other people, not hurting yourself, if that's like the general idea, you could say that's a healthy person. Well, then by definition, anyone doing something that isn't like that, that's not a healthy person. That's not a person that respects themselves, they don't respect others, they don't respect society. They're hurting themselves, hurting others. So therefore, by default, they would be considered ill. And so I think we highly have to question the idea of punishing people for being ill, and realize that if anybody you think is punishable because they did something that seems worthy of punishment, then it seems honest, although it's contrary to the common sense, it's contrary to law, it seems honest to accept that they're ill. They're definitely ill. And they're ill, and so you don't punish people for being ill. But what do you do? And this speaks to the other part, is you say they didn't get enough punishment. I say we drop the punishment idea, but you say they didn't get enough help. They didn't get enough compassion. They didn't get enough attentive care by the community. Because I would personally eliminate the whole idea of criminal law. To me, there's just mental health and physical health, and those things need to be dealt with. And that includes the responsibility of us sometimes to hold somebody against their will, because they might hurt themselves, they might hurt others. And so you still would have people being held against their will, and people still might get taken away by the police. But they're not being taken away because they're bad people that deserve to be punished. They're taken away because they could hurt themselves, they could hurt others. They're a human being, part of our collective family. I don't know what their story is or what they've been through. I don't know if it's biological, psychological, social, economic, what it is, but they're doing things that are dangerous to themselves and others. We might have to take you against your will and try to help you. And we're actually trying to help you because we care and we love you. And yes, you did do some horrible things, but only a person that's crazy would do such a thing. So let's, even if we do have to keep you out of society for the rest of your life.
Let's do Axon's question next, and then I do want to get to my question,
sure.
and then we'll break into, we'll have a few minutes left to break into small groups.
Working backwards from forgive others,
Yeah.
stop punishing others for being ill. yourself
Yeah,
to be glad for where you are, what you have, who you're with, what you can do. Kind of formalizes to if forgiveness is the key to every door, gratitude is the hostess gift. It comes down to being grateful, no matter what your circumstances are. And there's science, there's neuroscience to support that. Just the searching your mind. Well, what do I have to be thankful? Releases certain neurotransmitters that are correlated with well-being. You feel better just by thinking of it. And if you can't think of anything, there's always the breath. And that brings us back to the be in the moment. Because the courage to change something can be as simple as changing your breathing. Because you can, even though it's an autonomic function, you can't stop breathing. But by focusing on the breath, that is right here, right now. And whatever anxieties, concerns, and worries you have about the future, guilt, grief, or remorse about the past, that just goes away. You're elevated just by that exercise.
Okay, so I want to wrap this up with I think the two questions that I think will be nourishing. One of them is, I'd like you to give us some insights that you haven't already shared into what prison life is like and just what it's like to be in prison. And I'm particularly interested in your insights in being in prison for nonviolent offense. We do have a sign-up sheet, by the way, and then the second question, well, before I wrap it up with the little micro discussions that we'll get to, is we have several times throughout this discussion analogized doing time in prison with doing time in life. So my question to you, and this is the $1 million question, probably the most poignant question I think we have here, the question we've posed several times. If we are doing time, what should we be doing with that time in life? And I'll pose that question to you, and then we'll pose that question in our small groups. And in the meantime, I'm going to take this pen and put it on the sign-up sheet. So if anyone's here for the open mic, you can sign up on the open mic list. So feel free to sign yourself up on the open mic list. There, it is over there by the little tip jar. And so why don't you answer those two questions, and then we'll have some time to break into some small discussions. We'll probably still be able to start the open mic at 7:05 for the people who are here for the open mic portion of the evening.
okay. So the first question was, you wanted to know something about what is it like to be doing time in an actual prison. And, well, you know, just a funny thing comes up to mind. It's like, you know, if you're in prison, you might want to get out of prison, and most people do want to get out of prison. Well, one of the ways you can do that is you can go to visit. And this is just an interesting thing about the anxiety that people have in life for different reasons. And so one of the things is to be waiting for a visitation. You're waiting for someone to come, and they're going to temporarily break you out and bring you into an opportunity to where you can interact with somebody, family, a friend, lover from the free world. And so a guy comes up to me, he's a super big muscle bound guy, like all muscles. And he sees me pacing back and forth, all dressed up in my nice clothes to go visit. He says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm waiting for my visitor to come visit me." He's like, "Well, you know, you look pretty anxious out here. I'm watching you pace back and forth." He said, "Let me give you a piece of penitentiary wisdom." He tells me, he says, don't ever sit around waiting for the unknown like that. It's like, you know, you've got some things that you actually do know are happening. Like you could go walk the track, you could go do some exercise, you could go down by the water, because there was some water, and you could go down by the water. You know, you could go watch the movie this weekend as planned. You could do any of these things, but you're over here waiting. Do you know when your visitor's coming? I'm like, no, I don't know. It's like, that's what I thought. Well, you don't know. So, you know, instead of sitting waiting anxiously on the unknown, you know, get busy doing the things that you can do right now, enjoy yourself. And if your visitor shows up, instead of you waiting anxiously and then finally they show up, or even worse, they don't show up and you missed out on the whole day, says instead, you know, go and do the things that you can do what's doable, enjoy it and be enjoyable. And They come, you'll hear attention on the compound, attention on dorms. Aaron, please come to the visit room, and you'll be surprised and you'll get excited because they're here, And I took that with me. That was a way of kind of like also enjoying life more, is these unknown things that you might find yourself fixated on, wondering if they will or if they won't happen. And if they are going to happen, when are they going to happen? Instead, what is it you can enjoy now? What is it you can do now? Get doing and enjoying and being. So that was one thing, but in the general picture, it's interesting because, as long as you're thinking that you're in a jail, right, then you wake up in jail and you have to experience being in jail. But as soon as you drop the idea that you're being held against your will because you're no longer trying to figure out how you can jump over the fence, you're now fully accepting that you are where you are. Then you wake up at home and you wake up and you say, oh, who's this new guy that got off the bus? Would you like a cup of tea? Come on in, have a seat, sit down on my couch. Let's break bread. Let's be friends. Let's be humans together. Let's enjoy ourselves. And then you might laugh and go, since I seem to have brought this back around, and go, whoa, maybe I've become institutionalized. Or maybe I've found the secret that was hidden in the middle of the kernel of the mystery, that you are where you think you are. It is what you think it is. And you may not be able to control the outside world and make it all go as planned, but you definitely, with some attention and some discipline, can control how you experience it. And that's the true freedom. And that's how you do good time, no matter where you are.
All right, so we have about 5 minutes. Let's give about 5 minutes for the transition to the open mic portion of the evening. The list is over there. But let's break into groups of 3. And just to recap the question is analogizing prison life to just life in general. How do we do good time, and how do we do with our time the thing we're supposed to be doing? And let's get in groups of 3, and let's try to have like a little 5-minute micro discussion, which we usually try to do at the end. We'll start the open mic at 7:05, so I've got the sign-up sheet over there. And we'll give about 5 minutes and try and get into a group with people you don't know. So if you came with somebody, try to separate yourself from the person you came with and get in a group with somebody else. So feel free to get in groups of like 3 people, but try to get to know some new folks. And then let's have that micro discussion. And let's start now, yeah. And then we'll start the open mic in about 5 minutes. First of all, though, let's pause first of all and give a really big round of applause to Aaron for sharing some really amazing and really very beautiful insights. And we're just scratching the surface of a lot of discussion. So I encourage you to at least talk to Aaron in the next couple of minutes while we're getting ready for the open mic to start. And anyone can sign up for the open mic as well. So you can sign up if you want just spoken word, or if you want to just have a brief moment on the mic, just to have a talk, feel free to sign up.
Yes.
Those things about the reactions to situations. How to relate to them.
You have a really great But I did message him this morning. I asked him about Facebook. So I said, I'm back. But we do have, I mean, we do have everything in mind. So I think it's just gonna be. Yeah. Bring everything.
The main thing he needs to do is he doesn't have to worry that much about the sound. So it should be a less.
Talking on each other's heads.
I ran sound for the drive. People were like, here, and then saying here. And people were running around, and somebody like swung around, light landed on the ground. That was a great idea.
Yes. So far.
Yeah.
This is the truth. This is like or.
You are living in place.
They're making me scared.
All right, well, let's try to do a transition now into the open mic. But I would encourage you, before you wrap up your conversation, to at least exchange names with the new person you've just met, hopefully. And hopefully you've met at least one new person. All right, so I'm going to start off the open mic with a couple of my own songs, and then we'll go to the list and see who's on the list. I was stuck with my feet in the sand where I stood. I was sinking below into wounds in the earth, calling out to the hills as they swallow me up. I was tossed by the wind in the rush of the blood. I was lost behind your eyes. I would swim in your light. Let me burn up in your fire. Lord, faith, firefly. Intertwined with the leaves and the green and the lights. I will sink into stones that collect by my side, holding on to the memories that turn into gold. I will rustle and twist into stories I've told. I will walk behind your eyes. I would swim right, so raise your hand if you're part of the open mic, just so I have a sense of how many people. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna do one more, and then I'll call it quits there and bring somebody else up. I think we probably have time for like 3 songs for people with the amount of people who are here. First, though, I really want to give another round of applause to Aaron Sun Camacho for really leading a really meaningful discussion with a unique set of life experiences and really distilling that into, I think, a lot of wisdom. So thank you, Aaron. Give it up for Aaron. Also, big round of applause to Will. Will helped us immensely yesterday. We had this really great LGBTQT variety show, which was really, really incredible. It was just a really resonant and very moving experience. A lot of comedy and a lot of songs and poetry and spoken word and sketches, and I was just blown away. So we want to do more stuff like that, but I'm super grateful that Will came out and helped us out for that event. It was really very, very moving. So thanks, Will. And then if you don't know me, I'm the facilitator of Alluvium. And then I'm just gonna do one more song, and then I would encourage you to just make sure that you're not playing while other people are playing, just to as much as you can, if it's possible. Anyways, I'm the facilitator of Alluvium. I'm Eli. If you have any questions about the space, feel free to ask me. We do have some really great programming coming up. So I want to extol the virtues of that programming and just encourage some of you to come. So again, every Sunday, we're here at 6 o'clock doing our philosophical discussion. And then we have the open mic at 7. Next Sunday, during the day, starting at around noon, we're going to be doing a food pantry outside. So I would love it if some of you wanted to come and grab some food and just meet the folks who are doing it. We really want them to have a permanent presence in this neighborhood, because this neighborhood really does need their food services. It's going to be a food pantry next Sunday at noon. Monday, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, we have a really great group led by Sage Liskey, which is called Adult Children of Alcoholics. So he's a really insightful author, Sage, and he will be sharing some really amazing insights. And then also at that group, it doesn't have to be just alcoholics, but adults who have been traumatized in their childhood are all welcome to attend. That's going to be tomorrow at 7. We have figure drawing here every Tuesday. We've got the Reality Kitchen open mic happening here now, and that's going to be happening every Thursday. And then we have some other really great events. So I'm just going to do one song solo, and then we'll open it up to other people. But I would encourage you to not play while other people are playing in general. And then we'll open it up. This is going to be my last song, and then we'll go to the list for the open mic. Carry the weight of my life. And that's, oh, thanks. Okay. I didn't mean to step right. And we try and have a theme for each open mic, and so that song was in response to, I think, one of the more poignant questions that Aaron brought up, which is the way we do time in our lives and what we should be doing with our time. So if you want, you can answer that question in your set. And then if anyone needs anything, let me know. I'm going to be wiping off the microphone in between songs. So I'll wipe it off now, and then I'll probably switch it out with another microphone intermittently throughout the evening. Victor, you can come up here and start setting up there. And Victor's a really fantastic singer-songwriter, so give it up for Victor, everyone. Great song, as always.
Yeah, I've played it before. It's got a passive pickup, so it might be a little more. Sound okay? Oh, the snow sanitizer. I'm getting used to it now. I like it. I'm gonna miss it if this ever goes away. Kind of like sounds. Does anybody remember the sound? There's a museum of sound somewhere. The sound of a modem. That beep. Memories. Very interesting discussion earlier. Thank you. Thank you. Interesting insights into time, doing time. This is a song about memory, kind of being trapped in memory, which I think relates, not being particularly in the moment. Walking up the hill, puff of dust where every hoof hits the trail. Old hay bending in the wind, in the sail, like a sail. My car's parked well off the street, pistol and an extra clip beneath the seat. Might come in handy with the folks I'm here to meet. There's an ocean between what's wrong and right. Somehow I think I've fallen overboard at night. Nothing to guide me back to the shore but the light of memory, memory, memory. About money, it's not about the pain. I've got these images trapped inside my brain, and even if they go away, don't know I'll ever be the same. I've only come to talk, I've got some things to say. I really hope this doesn't go the other way. But if it does, well, I'm prepared to pay for the memory, memory, memory. to the shore with the light of memory, memory, memory. A line of cattle walking up the hill. Every one of them will end up running through the mill. But they keep walking slowly, walking still. In my memory, memory, memory. There's an ocean between what's wrong and right. Somehow I think I've fallen overboard at night. Nothing to guide me back to the shore. Light of memory, memory, memory. Thank you. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, I was moving away.
I'm only gonna go do 2 songs tonight. I played this song for the first time at the Hybrid today. I was part of their holiday thing, and afterwards a guy came up to me, and it's a song from the 70s. He said, "Man, you really nailed that. I remember the first time you heard it." He told me the story about the first time he heard this song, and it reminded me of the first time I heard this song in the 70s. I just remember thinking, whoa, that's a wild song. It's just a great song. And it's very much a 70s song, because it's about driving trucks while intoxicated, and smuggling illegal aliens, and just all the kind of stuff that was acceptable behavior in the 70s. I tell people, I say, people that weren't around in the 70s, which there's a lot of them now, I say the 60s are when people said we need to be freer, and the 70s are when people said this might be a little too free. Worked by the rain, driven by the snow, drunk and dirty, but don't you know that I'm still willing. Out on the road, late at night, and see my pretty house, and every headline, oh Alice, Dallas, Alice. And I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, I have to be told wrong. Driven every kind of bridge that's ever been made. Driven the back roads I couldn't get away. You give me weed, white sand, wine. It can show me a sign. I'll be willing to be moving. Kicked by the wind, robbed by the sleet, had my head stove in, but I'm still on my feet now, still. Smuggled some smoke, some ghosts from Mexico, baked by the sun every time I go to Mexico. And I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, had to be told apart. driven every kind of freight that's ever been made. Driven in the back roads, I couldn't get away. You give me wine, say wine, and you show me shine. I'll be willing, be moving, willing. And that's a Lil George song. All right, thank you. I'm good.
Give it up again for Victor. When's the next show?
I don't have a show coming up. Try to set one up here.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right.
Little George's daughter plays on my last record.
Ah.
Yeah.
I unplugged from your amp.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
All right, Mark is up next, and it's Mark's first time playing at Alluvium. So let's give a really warm reception for Mark, everyone. Yes. No. Oh, you want me to do it? I brought the.
I'm a short guy. There we go. How y'all doing? All right. Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the music scene. I picked up a guitar for the first time about 3.5 years ago and started teaching myself, but now I'm in 2 bands playing bass, and I write a lot of my own music at home, and I really have never had a chance to play any of that publicly. So I kind of had this urge today to come play some music. So I wrote this one actually last March when we were first entering all the COVID stuff. It's called A Very Strange Time. Our world is no longer safe. song called Getting Old. I'm getting lazy. I'm getting old. Some days my bones just ache, but it's just part of traveling this road. And I still have a lot to do. And I'm gonna find a way through. Do a lot of thinking about the days gone past. Things I've done and places I've been my life fast. But today I slow down, and my body's beating to the ground. Sorry, I just wrote this not long ago. So. Let's see. Sorry about that. Getting old, little days. Most of those are just a phase. I've lived my low days. I'm getting old. God, I can't play tonight. Sorry. Let me try a different. Sorry about that. And I'm nervous because I've never done this in front of anybody by myself. So, thank you. I appreciate it. You're too kind. So this one I just actually wrote 2 weeks ago, and it's called Headed Home. And I wrote this song as a challenge to myself. I wanted a song that I was in the third person, had some dynamics throughout the song, and it was just a fun one to play. So this is called Heading Back Home. I might do better sitting down. I'm sorry. That'll probably work a little better for me.
Can you unplug this for a second for you there? Bring it around and plug it back in.
Sorry about that. I don't stand a lot except when I'm playing bass. All right, let's do this. Thumbing down the highway, there's only one road. She's on the right one, she's headed back home. Grew up in the country, said it's time for a change. Packed her bags and hit the road, she's finally free. Rode into the city, not knowing a soul. Found a place to stay the night. She's finally off the road. Nothing went right for her. Feeling scared and alone. She never realized just how much she was home. Sometimes your dreams just take you away. Living life complete, day after day. Well, the only thing that she regrets is behind her down the road. She's not just gonna stay or head back home. Sometimes your dreams just take you away. Living life complete, day after day. Well, the only thing that she regrets is behind her down the road. She's not just gonna stay or head back home. Called her mother and father, said, I'm coming home, coming back to the country, back where I belong. Thumbing down the highway, there's only one road. She's on the right one, she's headed towards home. Sometimes your dreams can take you away. Living life complete, day after day. Well, the only thing that she regrets is behind her down the road. She misses the country life so. Whoops. She's headed back home. Headed back home. Yes, she's going home. I think I'm done. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Mark, his first time performing here. We got Will from Art for Truth coming up next. Oh, right, that's right. You said that's right, yeah. And we actually are going to have some special guests here tomorrow night, it sounds like, from the Wandering Stool. If you know them, the Wandering Stool, Calvin Burke, is going to probably be here. He just messaged me. Calvin Burke? Oh, Calvin. Yeah, from the Wandering Stool. So he'll actually, the Wandering Stool, I think, is going to be here, which is this weird, kind of funky, open musical thing that happens tomorrow night. I think they're going to be here tomorrow. Yeah, he's messaging right now. So I don't know where to go. If you have any other questions about other events that are happening here at Alluvium, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll try and answer all your questions. I'm the facilitator of the space, so I'm always happy to, when people want to know more about Alluvium or what we're doing here. We also have an email list. There's also, right by the sign-up sheet, there's a tip jar too. So if you have the means to contribute, we are entirely donation supported as an organization. So feel free to contribute if you can and if you have the means. And we do have an email list too. So if you want to keep in touch, that's a great way to do nice things for us. And if you want to do something nice for us that's free, I would love it if you just followed us on Instagram or like our Facebook page. I know that stuff sounds really corny, but it does help us as an organization. And if you want to post a review or whatever, that's also definitely super awesome. So feel free to do any of that stuff.
All right, greetings, everybody. Welcome. I want to give a big thanks to Eli here for all he does. Yeah, big round of applause for all he does here for the community and for this center. You're much appreciated here, Eli, in the short time you've been here. So, thank you. Probably just going to jam on some music tonight. I don't know how much word stuff I'm going to do. I appreciated the guest speaker, some of the questions that were brought forth. I do say, though, it is very difficult, and it's one of those things that absolutely just makes my blood boil when I hear of people who spend a good chunk of their lives in prison for medicine-related crimes. Quote-unquote crimes. It is a tragedy and an enormous ailment on our entire global society. It's not just an American problem. But the truth is the system is not designed to work for us. It is not meant to. The system that governs us is not meant to be logical, reasonable, compassionate, or wise. It is meant to rule. That is it. That is what our systems do. And one of the greatest sicknesses, we were talking about sickness, one of the greatest diseases and sicknesses in our world is a need for control. A need for order, especially those over others. The desire for control is not explicit to one political point of view either. It is infiltrated, you should say, or I could say it is an enormous part of any system of government or system of being that would have people operate in a certain fashion. There are progressive tyrants, there are conservative tyrants, there are moderate tyrants. I've become so disenfranchised with our entire political system. With progressives, with conservatives, with anybody who identifies as anything that limits them and puts them in a box of thinking. So I encourage people to think beyond a box of thinking. Don't limit yourself or label yourself or fall victim to identity politics or any of this stuff. our identity is our art. It's our contribution to the creative rhythm of the universe. I believe that fully. And the only identity of a person that I care about is your creative identity. Are you serving arts or are you fighting it? I, for one, am an enormous proponent of abstraction as a way of being, as a way of viewing the universe and a way of connecting with the other elements, the other variables of the universe. I remember hearing somebody speak once, and I regret not knowing the person's name. He was I believe he was an Indian. He might have been Tibetan, but I believe he was from India. He was a bit of a sage. Gosh, I wish I knew his name. Saw an interview on YouTube with him from, I think, the 70s or 80s, and he was already very old then. But he said something to the effect of, and it resonated with me. He was talking about art. He was talking a lot about art and its importance, and how it is a connection to the creative energy of existence, far beyond any human expression or any human vision. And he said something that I found very interesting was, as soon as art becomes anything, I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to get the idea. But he basically, like, when art becomes anything beyond color and form, when it becomes, or anything beyond art, it becomes politics, it becomes politicized. So you are, in this way of thinking, as soon as you use art to represent something, whether it be a landscape in front of you, a political idea, a feeling, a story, you have politicized that art. You have turned that art into something more than just art. It has become a part of your statement. It's become a part of communication for ideas other than the artful movement of color and form. So, we connect more deeply to the essence of the universe and the fluidity of it, I believe, through the connection to abstraction in our art. And one of the most important things that I believe that we need to do as people is to become far more fluent in abstraction and have far more of a head for realizing the importance and the reality of things beyond the need to label them or to identify them as an object or as something that you can relate to. A very, very damaging and dangerous question that I think that we need to learn to not ask is, when you look at a piece of art, to say, what is it? Well, it's art. I mean, that's what it is. That is what it is. It is not it is not the landscape you're looking at. It is not George Washington. It is not a bunch of people holding hands under the rainbow. It is an image of an idea. It is not those things. Rene Magritte, the surrealist, did this very poignant painting. Very simple, very, very simple concept. He painted a pipe, like a smoking pipe that you put tobacco in, and he wrote in French, because he spoke French. He wrote, "Ce n'est pas une pipe," which basically says, this is not a pipe. Very, very simple. The surrealists were nailing some real simple principles that seem simple to us, but were pretty profound philosophically. And basically what Rene Magritte was saying is, like, I did not just make a pipe. This you're looking at here is not a pipe. This is a painting. This is a picture. This is ink. This is brown paint and black paint. So that's what art is. Art is not the stuff it represents. And if we do not allow art to free itself from representation, we will not fully understand and we will not fully connect to the real power of art and the energy that it has for our evolution as conscious beings. Art is the lifeblood of consciousness. It is part of the evolution of reality. It's the evolution of anything beyond the physical, anything that connects. to the essence of why anything exists in the first place. I don't think there's anything in the world that comes closer to explaining existence and to solving the mysteries of the universe than art. With all due respect, my dear good friend Eli, I don't think science even comes close. But I think also too, I think that science is a very, very, very important part of our developing our understanding. I think that there's been so much for not talking or not doing work. I think there was a very, very unfortunate consequence or a very, very heartbreaking side effect that happened during the scientific revolution, which is really kind of inevitable when you think about it. But the tyranny of the spiritual forces at the time denied the facts of science and denied certain developments that were coming up and things that people were seeing, improving various sciences. And the religious institutions were denying the reality of a lot of these facts. So the scientific institutions started to deny the reality of a lot of the religions. It was like a mutual denial. Science and religion got to a point where they became diametrically opposed because religion couldn't see the reality of its own spirituality beyond the physical limitations that science was now redefining. And science has since gotten to a point where it denies the spirit because religion has made it such a dichotomized thing. There really shouldn't be such a distinction or separation between the physical, the scientific, and spirituality. Ultimately, they all come down to really a lot of the same things. And one of the cool things about quantum physics and a lot of science that's been going on since the 60s or whatnot, is that a lot of it sounds a lot more like stuff you read in the Vedas or that, Bhakti yogis and stuff were saying, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And it becomes a very interesting connection to the deeper metaphysical. And that is why art is such an important bridge, because art is that physical bridge between the physical and the non-physical, the metaphysical and the real, as we call it. We're still kind of new. If you think about it, we as human beings and stuff on this planet has the potential to exist in its current state for another 4 or so billion years, right? Where we're kind of a middle-aged star, a middle-aged solar system. Which technically means that human beings can be alive on this planet for another 4 or so billion years. We've only been evolving as human beings in some capacity for a few million years. Australopithecus africanus, the oldest, is what, 3.6 million or something like that? And that's still a monkey-looking being. I mean, that's still very much a non-human type of hominid. So what are humans going to look like in 1 billion years, 4 billion years? Well, maybe we'll have branched off into tons or a whole bunch of different new conscious entities. I do fully believe, though, that with the power of art and with the connections to some of these deeper principles, we can evolve. We can evolve into telepathic beings, into beings that far more resemble the elves, let's say, of Middle Earth, Tolkienian elves, that lived for thousands of years, can telecommunicate, telekinesis, connected to the earth in such a way that they create magic from everything that they touch. I believe that is evolution. I believe that is a prophecy of what humans will become, not a fantasy or a concept relating to what we might have been. I believe it truly is the future. But orcs are the future too. AI, that's another thing we're going to have to contend with. Robots need art. If robots do not learn the fundamental concepts of the abstract universe, then we're fucked, because they're just going to destroy it. So I think that it's very important that we integrate artful life, the artful existence. Art takes all the shit, good and bad, and turns it into something beautiful. How much more magic can there be? Like, it's amazing. It's one of the greatest and most powerful elements of our arsenal of our existence to deal with anything. I think there's so much to energy that we're still learning and we're still beginning to discover. I think that a lot of the mechanisms of our body, of our brains, of our neuroscience comes more from energies. It's not the result of these synapses connecting this way. That's just the mechanism in which the energy comes through us. But I don't think that those things are creating that per se. And I think that there's a lot more, because there's things that happen that you say, like the hippocampus affects this, or the human, you know, like this type of thing. But then if you can see similar behavior in the way that certain animals, for example, ants and bees, behave towards one of each other, they don't have brains or the type of central nervous system that we have, but they have empathy. They have and exhibit behavior that is often associated with certain elements or lobes or parts of our brain. So I really do think it's more of an energy thing than anything else. And that's why I believe in art so much, because art really connects to that energy. It's fluid, it's musical, it's poetic, it's all of these things. Since I don't really do songs per se, like this is song 1, song 2, I will probably getting a little close to fair time, so I'm just going to jam a little bit more for you. Try to keep my mouth shut for a minute and just do a little bit of a musical jam. So thank you all so much for your ear and your time. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Art for Truth. I want to give some props here too. We have a number of people who come through, of course. You know, lots of talent, lots of skills. And I know we have some people in here that are really good musicians and really skillful. Not to just sing, like I'm just thinking Axon in particular and Eli as a really just, you get up here and you play so well. And I just kind of come up here and I screw around on the guitar and I don't play chords, normal chords, and I know nothing really about music. So I just want to give you my props and respect as musicians and artists, and hope that I'm not disrespecting you from doing my weird thing when I come up here. So, all right, just wanted to say that. Thank you all very much.
Let's give it up extra hard for Will and his weird thing. We got Ray coming up next. And by the way, some of you may have noticed that we have a pantry outside now. So we're doing a partnership with Slice where we're getting a lot of their old pizza that they're throwing out otherwise at the end of the night and leave it in our pantry. If you ever want to bring food, that would really be wonderful. Our preference would be for non-perishable food. And remember, because we serve much of the houseless population, that you want food that can be easily masticated without dentition. So bring things that can be chewed easily without, for people who frequently have bad teeth. So, but if you ever want to bring non-perishable food, that's certainly something that we welcome. Big shout out to Bobby Blotter for liking our Instagram page. Go on Instagram and look at our page, the little icon that you have, the drawing is actually a drawing that Will did. So that's our little Instagram photo. You can find us pretty easily, like just Alluvium Eugene on social media. And if you look for the cat who's over there, Mosby, Mr. Mosby, that's another easy way to spot what we're doing. So yeah. Just so you're making sure you're following the right Alluvium. So on our YouTube channel, we do have a YouTube channel as well. Yeah, and it's linked on our Facebook and on our Instagram. Yeah. And I've especially been happy to share those because we've had these, like I said, deep discussions on Sundays at 6 right before this open mic. So we've been recording those. And if anyone doesn't want to be recorded, just let me know that you don't want to be recorded, and I won't record you. Give it up for Ray, everyone.
So good to see a couple of friends of mine from No Shame Theater here today. It's hard to follow these acts, but it inspires me to do something that I wasn't intending to do, which is to tell 2 stories followed by a short song I share at song circles. So the first one has to do with art and the 70s, which were both previous themes. Back in the 70s, I was renting an apartment, and the owner of the apartment said, "I'm going to sell the house, so feel free to paint the interior." Well, he didn't tell me how to paint the interior, so I painted wall murals over the entire surface of the inside of the apartment. And I never knew what came of that. I don't know if I got my deposit back or not, but I pretended that I invented a new art form called scat art, based on an extension of the concept of scat from jazz singing. And the definition I wrote on the door was, "Scat art exemplifies the anarchistic id revolt against cerebral structure and conceptual formalism." But I don't think that ever made it into Webster's dictionary. The second story I want to tell is a more personal growth story, and I think it's becoming a tradition for me to come up and tell a personal growth story from my past. So once upon a time, back in 1996, 95, sometime about 25 odd years ago, I was at one of the first summer camps for the Network for a New Culture, which was kind of cutting edge at the time, or at least we thought we were. And I was having an odd kind of a conflict with one of the facilitators, oddly enough, over who should clean up a mess that one of us spilled. And I can't even remember which one of us spilled the mess, like spilt milk on the floor or something. And we were literally having a kind of a shoving match back and forth. No, I should clean it up. No, I should clean it up. Not blaming the other person, but trying to take responsibility ourselves. And that was the source of the argument. So the contention was resolved by a wise elder who called himself Apollo, who actually owned the land, and he had made this land into a trolley farm. So trolleys would go up and down these tracks over so many acres. I can't remember how much. And he collected these from all over the country. So we called it the trolley farm. And that's where we used to have the Network for New Culture summer camps up near Portland in the old days, about 25, 30 years ago. And so we were having this conflict, and Apollo came up, who owned the land, and he said, "You guys stop a minute. I'm going to take you outside." So he took us outside, sat us down, made us listen to nature in a meditative space. We were both very heated in an argumentational format. And in 2 minutes, he had us relaxed. He guided us through this meditation to heal us from this place of anger. And we were hugging each other within 2 minutes of this heated argument. And I think that's what we need more in the world, is people who can be wise in the moment, wise elders as mentors within society, embedded within society to help us on that level so things don't escalate and things have a tendency to escalate. I used to have a philosophy of reflect all that you see, be the reflection of all that you see, until I realized that was like a laser-like reflection between myself and the other person. So I adopted this other mode of looking at things, which is rising above a situation and resolving it from that angle. So that's my hopefully inspirational piece for this evening. Now I'd like to share a song that I share at song circles sometimes. Loving you, loving me, loving you. I'll be with you always, right here by your side, singing songs of beauty with spirit as our guide, as our guide. Loving you, loving me, loving you.
You want to talk a little bit about the show that you're planning here?
Yeah, I was going to wait till later, but sure, this is a good time. On January 15th, we're going to do the annual Mellow Heart Experience here, hopefully during the afternoon. It's about 3 to 4 hours, and anyone can come and contribute and make it what it is. I'm sort of the Ed Sullivan of the show. This is something I do on my birthday as my birthday present to the community of Eugene for all it's given to me in the past several decades. So I invite anybody who has anything to share, song, workshop ideas, come to me and we will co-create, co-manifest this experience. Thank you.
Give it up for Lawrence Herring coming up right now, who's also here for No Shame, and was really spectacularly insightful and comedic.
Thank you.
It's good.
Yeah, thank you. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Sunday. Okay, so first of all, I am a comedian, and they say trauma births comedy. And so I am one of those traumatic comedians. And so, if anyone is triggered by certain Bible scriptures, I'm warning you now. The Lord said to Moses, this is in Numbers, because I was putting up a menorah candle and you're supposed to read scriptures in Numbers. But I was like, being who I am, reading ahead of the, recommended reading, so I didn't take anything out of context. So I figured I should just read the whole book. That was fun. This one says, speak to the Israelites and say to them, if a man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him by sleeping with another man, and this is hidden from her husband, and her impurity is undetected, since there is no witness against her and she has not been caught in the act, and if feelings of jealousy come over her husband and he suspects his wife and she is impure, or if he is jealous and suspects her even though she is not impure, then he is to take his wife to the priest. Yada, 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 yada. So this is definitely written by a man, because there's nothing here about if a wife suspects her husband. So anyways, yada, 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 yada. Holy water in a clay jar, put some dust from the tabernacle floor into the water, and then the priest loosens the woman's hair and puts in her hands a grain offering for jealousy, and he pulls this bitter water, puts a curse into it. And then he writes on the scroll and washes the scroll into the bitter water that has now the curse in it. And then, of course, she has to drink it. So this is called trial by poison, which is a kind of archaic way of determining guilt. Sorry. So then, of course, what's going to happen to her, we don't know how fast this is going to work, it doesn't always say, but her abdomen is going to swell, and then her thighs are going to waste away. Do you know how many men look like that? Little chicken legs with beer bellies, Santa Clauses, or just skinny little chicken legs and just little tiny bellies. You know what that means? You know how many men are defiled? Come on. Anyways, the woman's supposed to say amen, and so be it. Okay, yada, yada, yada. If nothing happens to her, phew. And then she can have kids. That's what it says here. She'll be able to have children. And this is the law then of jealousy. And the whole entire law is to apply to this woman. And of course, at the very end of this, it says the husband will be innocent of any wrongdoing, but the woman will bear the consequences of her sin. That's fishy. So I like to pick the Bible apart and kind of go forwards and backwards and stuff, but these people, I'm sorry, I love all human beings, but when I go back into time and start researching some of these scriptures from a perspective of cultural anthropology and tribalism, it's kind of brutal and bloody and head chopping like Goliath and sacrificing 60 rams on the altar along with a whole lot of animals. There's the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Okay, so they were supposed to bring their gifts. And I'm going to end here on this because it's Christmas time and Hanukkah at the same time. About the 12 tribes of Israel and the gifts they brought. And I'm going to do this by kind of memory. So on the first day of, on day one, yada yada brought son of yada yada from the head of the tribe of the yada yada clan, brought this offering, 1 silver plate of 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the temple shekels in the sanctuary, On day 2, yada yada, son of yada yada, the tribe of yada yada, brought this offering, 1 silver plate of 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the temple shekels in the sanctuary. On day 3, get it? Okay. On day 12, yada yada of the son of yada yada of the tribe of yada yada-ite. Usually these end with ites. Brought 1 silver plate. Okay, same thing. It's like the 12 days of Christmas. So I was starting to read about the Nazarites and how it was spelled. And I'm an English major. I'm like, oh my gosh, that says Nazi, right? Nazi, right? Ah, okay. Now we're getting into the Aryan tribal stuff. This isn't good. And that's all about how you can't drink any wine. No wine whatsoever, nothing from the grapevine. No grapes, no grape juice, nothing from the grape, no seeds, no skin, nothing. And then you have to grow out your hair long, and you can't be around any dead people. Because if someone dies in your presence, you have to shave your head and start all over. And then make sin offerings because it was your fault. Anyways, and then you do it all over again. And then at the end of all of this, separation and sanctuary and being consecrated, and then you bring another bigger offering and shave your head again. And lots of animal blood all over the place. And then you can drink wine after the priest, makes the wave offering of the shoulder of the lamb and the cakes, because these guys were a little bit on the funny side of the Nazi rights of the Jewish sort of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So on that note, there is art in earth. And I do believe in a higher power of a creatrix that includes women and goddesses. And there is heart in the word earth if you play around with the letters. But sometimes for some women, we have to take the he out in order to see the art. Because sometimes men are aggressive and dangerous. So are women, but goodwill towards all and peace on earth, and stay away from people that are a little aggressive and crazy this time of year.
Scaring everyone. Ironically, I think that's the most Bible. Oh, and Axon is up next, by the way. Axon, is he outside? Oh, no, I'm sorry. We got Jeff and Ripley, and then Axon, and then I'm sorry, Jeff and Ripley, and then Axon, and then Trey. Actually, so let's get Jeff and Ripley up here. Oh, Joffrey and Ripley, yeah. And it's Joffrey's first time performing here. Yeah, I think that's as much Bible verses has ever been extolled or at least quoted.
Well, a cautionary Christmas tale.
Yeah, I just got the tree, by the way, so hope you all like that. And the lights in front.
No. Oh, unless you have the stool. No.
Or you can sit all the way down. Joffrey and Ripley, everyone.
Met her at a club down in Hollywood. They wouldn't let me in 'cause I didn't look so good. I saw this girl, I think she's Jewish or Greek. Wanna be with her for eternity. Then she walked right up to me. Then she walked right up to me. She asked me if I knew where to get me speed. I said I know a guy, but I don't have any money. Then she handed me a couple of 20s. Then she handed me a couple of 20s. She told me all about her ex-boyfriend. He died of an overdose of heroin. They found him in the bathroom on Christmas Day. Needle in his arm and vomit on his face. They found him on Christmas Day. They found him on Christmas Day. Now I'm not one to take advantage, but she was lying there and so I did some damage. I ain't no prude, I ain't no gentleman Jim. My father was a preacher, but I'm not like him. My father was a preacher, but I'm not like him. My father was a preacher, but I'm not like him. My father was a preacher, but I'm not like him. I gave myself right over to the wages of sin. Woo! The answer is not a question. The answer is no, for this is simply not a game. I'm not a player or a piece to be moved by one. Days and nights are not the same. Each one brings me unexpected. This is only life. Ordinary, only this life. Isn't it extraordinary? Well, when the question's not, how do I change the world? When the question is, how do I not live like a fool? All you need is someone who can make you feel in touch with the divine. A kind soul with eyes for mirrors to illuminate your dimly lit path to nowhere. The question is not a complaint. The time is now go. This is simply not a game. Beware the maids upon the shining path, for they are delicious. Their waves are bitterness and woe. This is only life. Ordinary, and only this life is extraordinary. Well, when the question's not, how do I change the world? When the question is, how do not live like a fool.
Thank you.
Joffrey and Ripley, everyone. Yeah. It's okay, it's no big deal. Usually the band Ripley plays bass, so you really couldn't. Big on bass. And again, I want to mention that like a lot of folks from the No Shame show that what happened on Friday are here. And they're going to be back here on January 7th. So if anyone wants to come in, it's like a series of little micro theater activities. So like little micro sketches.
The variety show.
Yeah, a lot of great music happens while there. So, and that's going to be on January 7th. They're going to do that here.
Hi, I'm Axel.
That's Axon's stool, everyone, that he donated to Alluvium. So give it up again for Axon.
This is great. I'm going to be remembered for Axon's stool. So we were talking earlier about, well, we were talking about, you know, everything. So I tried to pick out some songs that are, I've been playing a lot actually lately, because they sort of fit into that whole theme. This is a song, I think most of you already heard the shtick on it. I'll just abbreviate. This is a song about a physical, metaphysical, metaphorical, mythical, mystical, infinite point in time and space, equidistant between grief and grace. This is Dharma Waltz.
Sometimes I wrestle with my demons. Mostly we just coexist. Sometimes we spar, sometimes we spook. A couple times we've even kissed. Delicate negotiation when ego and instinct collide. They meet face to face, that narrow space where blue and violet confine. It's just a few cycles of bandwidth, the visual Doppler effect. There's no way of knowing you're coming or going. It's later than you suspect. Electrons charge into gases in an instant, photons divide. When light in the sky, you're lighting the eye where blue and violet confine.
I'm doing okay. As long as you grade on the curve, not by the man. The precious treasure, or even my own share. 'Cause there's a chewy, creamy center sublime. It's there for the seeking inside. Just drifting and dreaming, 3/4 time. Where blue violet can find. Just drifting and dreaming in 3/4 time. Where blue violet can find. Enough mystical woo shit. This is a pseudo blues. It's not really a blues song. It sounds sort of like a blues. It's a 32 bar song form. It's not really not a lament. It's not a sad narrative at all. More of a gospel tune, really, which is a pretty good trick for an atheist. I still managed to slip in a little scripture. Hold the whiskey, hold the beer. You take that red wine, get it on out of here. Unless you're talking about love, I've had enough. You can keep your cocaine and all your pills. I don't need no medicine to cure my ills or pay your bills. Unless you're talking about love, I've had enough. You can't tempt me with riches sufficient to the day. Even better. The more you stretch it, the more it itches. The only sure cure is pure love. So you can keep your silver and all your gold. There ain't nothing of lasting value to be found in this wicked world, so I'm told. Unless you're talking about love, I've had enough. Don't need
6 months, and make some new friends, and move on. Went into a place called Silver City, New Mexico, just west of El Paso. There was a little bar up in the foothills called the Buckhorn. There is still a bar up in the foothills above Silver City called the Buckhorn. And I played weekends. And then a few years later, I moved on, and then, Colorado City and so on. But a number of years later, I found myself living in my school bus and following the Grateful Dead around and going to rainbow gatherings. And there was a rainbow gathering down in New Mexico, so I went down to that one. And while I was down there, I stopped in Silver City and reacquainted myself with a few people and went up the hill to the Buckhorn. And the bartender and a few of the old regulars recognized me, so I played a set, got dinner out of the deal, And then quite a few more years later than that, my dad died, and I kind of went on a sort of a road trip thing that found me going back through New Mexico. So I stopped in there again. Only the bartender remembered me at that point. Still, I played a few songs, got a meal out of the deal. I drove away. I thought, man, I ought to write a song about that place. And I heard this one by Tom Russell, which is basically the song I should have written. Took a detour on a California run, searching for a joint I played in 1981. Up a rugged canyon, there's a roadhouse with a bar. I played 2 sets a night on my old Epiphone guitar. The owner, she smiled and said, it's been a long time. How you doing, cowboy? I said, I'm doing fine. I saw the special on your chalkboard sign. Same old T-bone steak and a glass of Spanish wine. Well, she laughed and said, no, not much is new. Sit on down, I'll have a glass with you. This old canyon's been tore up by wildfires now. We cater to a mostly older, mostly sober crowd. Music sure ain't like what it used to be. You could pair our hearts out with this song in the key of G. Set on down that T-bone steak song and me. Anything you need from Irene's is free. So I looked into her eyes, I saw myself reflected, so much young man. Just a honky-tonk troubadour, honky-tonking his way across a honky-tonk land. I hummed the chorus to Scotch and soda. That was my old set closing song. She said to hell with the past, kid. I hope you brought your guitar along. T-bone steak and a glass of Spanish wine. The daily special served from 5 till 9. Written chalk on that old chalkboard sign. I sang goodnight, Irene, and closed the time. The crowd was drunk and they always sang along. I took requests for the old cowboy songs till last call and Carmen rang is gone. Said goodnight, Irene, folks means move along.
cowboy, you just took me back to 1,000 yesterday. T-bone steak and a glass of Spanish wine, the daily special served from 5 till 9, etched in stone on that old chalkboard sign. I sang the night Irene, the closing time. Drained my glass and headed for the door. She said, so long, you tie-dyed troubadour. I said, I'll be back round here down the line. Some T-bone steak and a glass of Spanish wine. Baby, do I feel high? Oh, feel high. Ain't it funny how the time just slips away? Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. Good night. Thank you all very much.
Give it up again for Axon, everyone.
And his school.
And his stool, yes. But really, we're bringing Trey up, and so come on up, Trey. But while Trey's coming up, I really want to acknowledge that as I look around the room and our social media presence, the art that, Art for Truth has created, the School for Math, it's really true that this place is really a mosaic of a lot of different forms of both material and ideal expression. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that a night like this really makes me feel enriched for having created this place as a nucleus for so many great and interesting gestures of art and creativity and passion that have come together around to really create a really interesting mosaic, and I'm glad you're all part of it.
Now for something completely different and much simpler. forever on it goes. The circle fast and slow. I know you can't stop our love. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain coming down the sunny day? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day? I did it. Take me wrong, now what are you gonna do about it? You broke my heart, man enough to fight about it. You broke my heart, baby, drive me crazy. You could give it and I'm sure too lazy. They've all been lies, I think you know, see right through them. And all those lies, and the crazy way you learn to use them. I've been your fool for far too long, waiting for love on red ticket. I spent a lifetime looking for you. I won't hurt you now, but I will adore you. Now you say you wanna stay with me. I'm already gone away, you set me free. Down this open road, down this open road, down this open road I go. I see your face, but it ain't you. Every car I pass, I start to wonder if my will to leave is gonna last. Gotta keep my mind on the road. It's already done, it's done forever. Like the setting sun. I spent a lifetime waiting for you. I wanna hurt you now, but I adore you. Now you say you wanna stay with me. Already gone when you said me free. I'm down this open road, down this open road, down this open road I go. Try to pull this up. I tried so hard on you to show you're my every dream. You're afraid each thing I do is just some evil scheme. I'm entering from your love. It's us all apart. I cannot lay her down for mine. I'm too cold, cold heart. was a time when I believed you belonged to me. But now I know your heart is shut to a memory. Oh, I'm trying to care for you, or take apart. I clear down my cold heart. Why can't I clear down my cold heart?
So I have a favor to ask. We got Bobby Blotter coming up next and then Alyssa, but I do have a favor. Is anyone going back to Springfield, to the Gateway and Beltline area? Anyone have need to travel out there? Or Springfield? I wanted somebody to give somebody a ride home. You were gonna do what?
We are eventually heading in that direction.
Maybe. Robert, did you get that?
Yeah, sounds like it's possible.
Grace, are you okay with that?
All right, I've been there for a little while.
Would that be all right? If not, I can get you an Uber home or something. I have a bicycle. But let's get Bobby up here in the meantime. Give it up again for Trey.
Thanks for working. Let me know how you like the sound of this pickup. I just got it. It wasn't very expensive, so kind of doing a little test run here. Sound good. My name is Bobby Blotter. I'm a singer guitar player for a band called Mr. Risky, and we are currently releasing a new album. And it's pretty hard to do, being as how we're selling CDs. So I have some CDs on the back table back there, t-shirts, artwork. It's all free, whatever. If you guys want one, take one. Tip your open mic.
Oh, we do have a tip jar back there too. Yeah.
I take tips for him. But yeah, no, feel free to grab it. We put a lot of work into the CD. There's like 13 or 14 songs on there. I don't know, but keep in mind, all the artwork is different on the CDs. They're not different CDs, just each cover is unique. There's not two the same, so makes it a little interesting. So with that being said, I'm going to promote that album by playing some of the songs from that album.
fucking perfect. I'm not holding on to feelings, and just my demons keep on creeping, telling me I need to see you. Please die on me, and all those times we said no death, we'd always be together, happy like your TV series, little perfect fucking family. If you want a life in heaven and you're having trouble thinking, why don't you get it good, put it in your mouth, pull the trigger. I don't give a shit about life or death, I don't give a shit about you, baby. I wanna rest in bed or sleep in bed, you again, don't you get it? I don't want you, I don't need you, I don't miss you, and I've never known you, always shown through. Now I'm finding, now I'm up here above you. Above you. Guess I really had this coming. Forget your senses, only kill me. Just forgotten origami, folded paper falling on me. Could not find a better reason just to hate this fucking feeling that you give me every time I needed something different. Listen to me, pretty baby, you don't want me, you don't need me. If you really love me, why the fuck you try to kill me? I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about you, baby. I won't rest in bed, sleep in bed till you again. Don't you get it? I don't want you, I don't need you, I don't miss you, and I never known you, always shown through. Now I'm fine here, now I'm up here above you. That was rough with this ring on, damn it. Kept sticking to the dang fretboard. All right, we learned lessons. Let's see what's next. All right, so this is gonna be like the ballad on the album. I figure I'll give you a little an even selection through the sound here, because that album jumps from highs and lows. It's like riding a roller coaster. It's good fun. This one's called Fly.
the song. This is a cover. Unfortunately, I should have wrote it though. I agree. R.I.P. to Jimmy Morrison. But I think that's all I got for you guys. Check out a CD if you want more. If I run out of CDs on the table and you didn't get one, let me know. I have more in my backpack. Thank you, bro. Yeah, it's slightly naked. It was a used guitar.
Give it up for Bobby Blotter, everyone. Alyssa, have you been drawing like some of the people tonight?
Yeah.
So if you should meet Alyssa, and Alyssa has been sketching all the performers this evening. So make sure you check out her sketchbook. And Alyssa's been here for a lot of different events. She's been here for the figure drawing that we do on Tuesdays. So yeah, give a big round of applause for Alyssa, everyone.
Well, this one doesn't go on the motorcycle, so this is the winter guitar.
Oh, no, 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 it was great.
Beautiful.
You want another one?
Oh, gosh,
I'll do
okay.
another one too. Yeah. I'll step off too.
No, I like this.
night of connection and communication and philosophizing and music. And you all, everyone in the room, as I look around the room, really contributed something unique and very valuable. So I'm really glad that you all are here. So thanks very much. That was a nice night for me. Thank you. It was a nice night for Alluvium. I hope it was for you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.